Testing.
Tak dengar Prof. Naim tak dengar. Prof Naim dah start ke ataupun masih tunggu lagi? Sebab tak dengar apa-apa.
Sorry. Testing. Assalamualaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Alhamdulillah. All right. Then I have to restart. It's difficult, in the afternoon, so some people are not really ready. Inshallah. Okay. Full screen. Okay. That's right. Inshallah. All right. I'll restart. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good afternoon from down here, IIUM Pago. We are online from Pago. Thank you very much for being with us today, my dear colleagues, brothers and sisters, Pago campus, as well as from the online participant, perhaps from Gombak campus as well as from Kuantan campus. So I'm very happy today to be with you again. This is, I think, the fifth series of session to introduce i-VIVA to all IIUM Centre of Study. This is a new system that CPS relatively has launched last year to manage our student postgraduate students thesis and dissertation submission and management of VIVA. All right. So inshallah, I'll take perhaps around 2 hours of your precious time to introduce the system. And if you have any questions throughout the session, please stop me and ask questions. I am very happy to have this dual communication rather than just a monologue kind of presentation. What I expect at the end of the session is at least a certain level of awareness, especially those who has not yet using the i-VIVA system, on the features that the system provide, on the perhaps advantage that you might benefit and your student as well benefit from using the system. We have spent almost 2 years to develop the system, and many hours and effort has been spent. By the way, I would like to thank ITD, Sister Ellie here as a representative, to really help us to build the system in-house from scratch, 100%. So thank you very much, ITD, for helping CPS to develop the system. All right, so I will proceed. If you have any question, perhaps you can ask me before we start.
Full screen presentation.
Okay. All right. Before we start, I just want to introduce you to the system logo. We have even designed a specific logo to represent VIVA. So that actually logo represent i-VIVA with the graduate, the student, and also a triangle, the blue triangle representing a stream of water actually flowing down from the high mountain, as if our student after graduated will be like this water flowing down to nourish the living creation, and perhaps endow or give them or share with them what we try to reflect from our tagline, Rahmatan lil Alamin. So this is the logo that we have created especially for that purpose. All right. This session actually is a continuation from the first part of training that we usually conduct on another system of ours that is called iMonitor. All right. And iMonitor basically is responsible to help the supervisor to monitor the research progress of our student. So when we talk about research progress, the system is applicable to be used by students who register for research course. That is student who is under mixed mode and also research mode. So those students basically need to report progress of their research every semester, and on top of that, from the system of iMonitor, the student can use other features like setting up appointment and so on. So I'm not going to detail about the system here, but because our focus is on i-VIVA. So as I told you earlier, the system i-VIVA is developed to help a student to submit their thesis more efficiently, more efficiently, and more structured, in the sense that if we look at the previous practice, where the student use a lot of forms to submit the thesis, and the form has to go through several offices to get different approval, there are tendency for the form to get lost along the way. So there are quite, of course, there are quite a number of challenges in the previous system that lead us to develop the system, this i-VIVA system. And on top of a place for the student to submit their research report, the system can be also used to set the conduct of VIVA. Or in other cases, perhaps if there is no oral examination, the student has to, the thesis of the student has to be examined by a committee, a PTEM committee. So that, inshallah, can be handled by the i-VIVA system comprehensively. So in this workshop, these are the outline that I will perhaps touch a bit. First of all, the term of use of i-VIVA systems. And also I want to share with you brief steps or procedure that the student has to undergone or the thesis has to undergone upon its submission by the student until the final submission of the thesis into the library repository system for the student to store the thesis. And I'm going to walk through the system and share with you the features. At least you guys know about the many modules and function of the system. At least, as I told you earlier, the objective of this workshop toward the end, at least to create awareness for our community, IIM community, the existence of the system as well as its features. And lastly, we are going to conclude by addressing any question that you might have. All right, term of use. There are only two requirements for the system to be used in your Centre of Studies, Kuliah, and also institute alike. First of all, the Centre of Studies decision to adopt the system. All right. So as you guys know, to use the system, we require quite a number of stakeholders to be committed to use the system, because the system has many levels of approval by different officers. So the whole family or the whole all the staff at the Centre of Study must accept the use of the system to make sure the system can run from A to Z, can complete the whole process. And once the student has committed to use the system, he got to use the system throughout from point A to point B, from the time when the student is submitting the intent form to submit the thesis until the student submit the final clear version of the thesis after VIVA to the library to ensure that they eventually can be granted graduate status, GR. All right, next. This is the standard procedure for thesis and dissertation submission and the process. So I just want to brief you what is happening when the student start the process to submit the thesis. And before that, the i-VIVA system basically, in order to cater the whole process, we has defined many modules, different modules, where each modules carry different functions to serve the purpose of the module. And altogether, we have 9 modules developed to address or to cater the whole process of thesis submission and also the conduct of VIVA or PTEM session. Okay, so what happened in the beginning? This is the flow chart of the procedure. The first thing when the student wants to use the system is he needs to submit the intent form. So this can be done using the system. And basically, the student needs to submit the form 3 months in prior the submission of the thesis to be evaluated. So this is the rough time frame that we give to the student to basically, project the due date or the timeline that they have set to submit the thesis. So 3 months, I think it's just good enough. And within 3 months, what will happen behind the process is the supervisor himself will try to find the examiners, and the examiner will be endorsed at the postgraduate committee meeting at the respected Centre of Studies. So we hope all this process can be done within 3 months. And once the student has submitted the thesis to be evaluated, we can just send the thesis out to the examiner to evaluate. Because by the time the student has submitted the thesis, the examiner has been finalized. So that is the requirement for the thesis evaluation. And then what happened when the student submit the intent form? It has to get approval from the supervisor. And the supervisor has the authority to reject the intent depending on how he see the research progress of the student. And if he agreed to submit the thesis, if he allowed the student to submit the thesis, basically he need to inform several parties about the intention, namely the deputy dean of the postgraduate, the head of department, as well as the administrator at the PG office, so that at least they can anticipate, okay, this student actually is to submit the thesis and get ready with whatever action that they have to take. And then once the student has submitted the notification to submit the thesis, the next thing that the student has to do is to submit the abstract. And this abstract has to get approval from the supervisor as well. This is particularly important because we are going to use the abstract approved by the supervisor to the respected or to the nominated examiner so that they can read through the abstract and consider whether they want to agree with the nomination by the supervisor on being the examiner to the thesis. That is module number 2. The next module that we have developed for the supervisor to cater the whole process of VIVA is for the supervisor to invite the examiner or nominate supervisor to nominate the examiner, internal and external, to evaluate the thesis itself. So if the examiner is not in our database, especially the ex-examiner, then the supervisor can propose the new examiner, and this examiner basically will be approved at the kuliah, because now kuliah has been given authority to approve or to endorse the new ex-examiner. Like before, it's up to the Senate to approve, but now we have delegate, or Senate has delegate the power to the kuliah or the Centre of Study to endorse the nomination. All right, and if the nominated examiners say okay, so what is next is for the names to be brought to the PGC for the final selection. So usually what happened at the kuliah level, they will ask the supervisor to nominate extra examiner so that they can be an action of selection among those nominated, and after that approve at the PGC level. So that will be done by the administrator. Okay, and at the same time, while the supervisor is busy finalizing the examiner, the student can submit the thesis to be evaluated into the system together with the other document necessary set by the Centre of Studies, namely at least the turning-in report to check the similarity percent of the thesis that should be below 24%, and also the proof of publication. So as you guys know, when the student, depending on the mode of study, depending on the level of study, they have to fulfill the publication requirement to graduate. So we have this system to address the need. So student, while submitting the thesis, they can also submit all the other document. And this process has to undergone a different level of approval. First, the supervisor has to say okay, and then the administrator at the kuliah will check, especially for the formatting part of the thesis. And if she or he give the green light, then the thesis will go to the next level of authority to approve, that is the deputy dean postgraduate. Okay, all right. And what happened after the DDPG say okay? This is very important checkpoint. the student status will turn to TE, thesis examiner. This is of benefit to the student because once the student status is changed to thesis examiner, he is no longer need to pay for the tuition fees. So for the student, like the financial part is very, for them it's very important. So as fast if they want to change or they want themselves or the status to be changed to TE. So this will happen automatically when the DPG endorse all the submission. All right. So what happened next? The Kuliah or the Centre of Study PG office as well as CPS, once they got all the document approved and also the name of the examiner finalized, they will send out the appointment letter, official letter to the examiner. All right. And upon the acceptance of appointment, the time start to tick. They need to submit the thesis back or the evaluation report back within a specific number of days. So we can keep track of all this. This is very important, especially to students. Sometimes the student keep bugging the office. The officer asks whether the report has come back, when the report should come back. So all of these actually now available in the system. The number of days left for the examiner to return back the report. Even if the examiner take extra days, it's all recorded and viewable from the system by the student and by the supervisor likewise. Okay, and this is also very helpful to track and also to remind the evaluator or the examiner about the need to submit the report. All right. Once there is reports are received by the CPS and also by the PG office. By the way, in our university, for all PhD theses, the conduct of the iVIVA is handled by CPS, and for master student, the conduct of iVIVA and PTEM is handled by this Centre of Studies. But I envision by having the system, inshallah, in the future, perhaps Centre of Study can handle everything, all, even PhD, because now the process is more structured, and I don't think, or I can only envision that it helps the officer a lot in terms of keeping the forms and also keep track of the process more efficiently. All right, and after the iVIVA is done, usually what happens is we will appoint post-iVIVA supervisor to ensure all the comments during iVIVA is addressed properly by the student, and once endorsed by the post-iVIVA supervisor, the student then can submit the final form of the thesis for graduation purpose. Okay, so this is actually available under the module number 8 to finalize the thesis submission. And this final thesis submission actually will be scrutinized by 4 parties. The first one is the supervisor himself, and then the administrator will check, and then the DPG will check, and eventually the dean will endorse. So here the dean need to play role at least to click the button to endorse. There's no need for them like last time, they have to receive like a stack of papers, stack of documents to go through and stuff. But now the process has been simplified into click of buttons. So there shouldn't be any excuse anymore for the system users to avoid using the system. And after the dean say, okay, basically the student status can be turned into GR. That means they have officially graduated. Of course, not really official because the official committee to endorse the graduation is AC, right? AC. But at least this is the precursor to the final decision to graduate the student. Okay, that is done. So the next step is we have to deal with the library. Directors, for quite a number of time has stressed that all the research write-up, research report in the university should be made available or accessible by the mass. We should not just keep our work in the library. Okay, it should be made available to the mass, so it can be shareable and exploitable by the users outside. So for that, the library has built their own system to store all the student research report, thesis and dissertation alike. And to do that, the student has to access or to declare the type of copyright of the work, whether the work is shared between the university and the student, or just belong to the funder of the work. It depends. We have different category of copyright and the status of open access. We have different level of access. We have even closed access or embargo. Embargo is we can only allow the access after a period of time set, or confidential. So just a certain number of pages can be accessible from outside. So this has been developed. The category has been developed by CPS and library. And once the student has declared and the supervisor has certified, then the library will pull the thesis from the i-VIVA system and make it available in our library system. That end the process. Very comprehensive, yeah. Okay, is there any question? Is there any question from the?
Can I have? Can I ask about post-VIVA SV?
Yes.
The SV for post, is it post-VIVA or post-exam something? Is it appointed? I mean the supervisor, the SV, is appointed among the academics in the particular kuliah, or can it be someone, any from other
kuliah, okay.
Universities?
Okay. So what happened actually for the VIVA to be conducted, we need to set up a committee. NEC, that is a Master Examination Committee, or DEC, the Doctoral Examination Committee, composed of course, the examiner, internal examiner, and external. We have the kuliah rep, we have the secretariat to the session, and also we have the chairman. So the decision of the who should be appointed to be the post-VIVA supervisor will be determined by this chairman, by this committee. So usually depend on the result. If it is just minor or no, not much of correction to be done, the current supervisor will be again appointed as post-VIVA. Most of the time, yes. But if the case is serious, for example, major, then they usually appoint the internal examiner. Or external. It can happen for it depends on the decision of the committee. And even if they find there is no suitable examiner to be appointed within these people, they can appoint, for example, academic from the student Centre of Studies. So it's open, depend on the situation, depend on the result.
So once post-VIVA supervisor is appointed, will there be any more relation, with the current supervisor? Like is the current supervisor still having the duties, responsibilities to oversee the students' correction?
Yeah, usually that is what we advise. The student has to work with the current supervisor to ensure that all the correction, all the comments given are addressed properly. And the one who's going to check it is by the post-VIVA supervisor.
Post-VIVA supervisor is only to check, not to supervise the corrections.
He can help as well, because sometimes the comments are given by them, but they have the final say about whether to accept the final submission or not. The post-VIVA supervisor. And the supervisor, if it's the same person, then it's okay. If it's a different person, at least they can help to answer to the comments.
Who is expected to hold the main responsibility?
The one who should officially endorse the submission is post-VIVA supervisor.
Post-VIVA supervisor. So post-VIVA supervisor is sort of expected now to assume the duty of supervisor.
Yes.
But now the main responsibility lies upon their
shoulders. Yes. They will be given an official appointment letter.
Okay.
In fact, we are trying to acknowledge this appointment. Perhaps can be used for the purpose of promotion, because before it's not really
Because
captured.
That's pretty heavy.
Yes, yes, especially if the correction are major.
Yeah.
Sometimes even if it's resubmission, it's like starting the whole thesis back.
Submission.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Any more question from online audience?
Yes, Assalamualaikum, Prof. Sharul. Thank you so much. I have a question. Can you go to number 2, the abstract submission? You mentioned just now that the abstract must be submitted and then it has to be approved by the supervisor. I was asked by one of the supervisor, if let's say they submit the abstract, then after 3 months when the student want to submit the thesis, they change the abstract. Is that okay?
Yes. So we allow that to happen. In fact, it can happen as many times as the student want. He can submit, the supervisor can reject. It's infinite. But what will happen is the one that we will send to the examiner is the last approved abstract by the student. Okay, so if the student has submitted the first abstract, for example, and supervisor approved, and as long as he has not sent out the nomination mail to the examiner, the student can still submit the new abstract. And if the supervisor approve it, and that version of abstract will be sent together with the email.
Okay, thank you so much. And the next one is number 9. Okay, the number 9, you mentioned there, the post-VIVA. So after the student had gone the VIVA and then the post-VIVA submission, then there is a form, the review form for, the review form for final submission of thesis and dissertation, which was sent out on the 25th January 2023. So that one, the student has, the students still need to submit that form, right? Because it has to undergo the thesis formatting, thesis format checking, right?
With regard, I think the form you're talking about is the thesis format form,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it is now embedded into that module, final submission module, where the student on top of need to fill in, not really fill in, because eventually what will, the administrator will respond to the submission and fill up the requirement. The student has to submit the turning in report again, and also others requirement like the approved abstract in Arabic, the English abstract, and quite a number of other documents that the student has to submit again. So there is no, form that there is no additional form that the student need to use to complete the process. Meaning that the form is already available in the system, and it is the task of administrator to use the forms to reflect whether the format has been format of the thesis.
All right, so meaning
Did I
that,
answer your question?
yeah, so meaning that this form is for the PG administrative it is for the PG administrative to refer, right? So let's say the student have get the approval from the supervisor, and then get the verification for the abstract, Arabic abstract, and then get the approved, and the PG administrative will do something at the system, right?
Exactly right.
Okay, got
Exactly
it.
right.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, there are two places where the administrator will do the format checking. The first one is when the thesis is about to be to be submitted to the examiners. But for that one, the checking is not that thorough. In a way that he will just need to look or gone through the thesis and put comment if there is any. And if the thesis is rejected, the comment will be sent to the student back to respond. But for the final submission, the format checking is more thorough, where the administrator will need to tick the different requirement to ensure that the format is abide. There are quite, I mean, a number of things that he need to check. For example, the size of the font and stuff like that. But once he has verified the format, the next party to endorse, for example, in this case is DPG, they don't have to recheck the format again. Based on the verification given by the administrator, you can just whether approve or endorse the submission.
Okay, thank you, Prof. So I've just sent the attachment of the letter and also the latest form for your reference in the chat box.
Okay, right, thank you.
Thank you.
Another thing, you know, like especially for the PG coordinator or DDPG or even the administrator, we realized that different kuliah, different center of studies might have introduced or developed additional forms to handle the whole process. So, you know, the form, so to cater all this form might not be possible by a system. So we need to set a standard. So when we develop the system, we use the form that is official, that is endorsed at or in use at the CPS level. So that is the form that basically cover the core of the process, where the additional process and the form that is introduced at the center of study level, it is not embedded into the system. So because of that, I would encourage the Center of Studies PG office to try to adapt some process. If you still need the student to use the manual form, go ahead and try to adapt it into the system. For example, the form to declare the publication. The student has published and you need to declare. The system has a means to address the requirement where the student can submit the publication per se. But if there's a form, perhaps the kuliah can set the policy at the kuliah level, of course, to ask the student to submit just the form, not the publication itself. So it's really depend how you want to adjust the of i-VIVA into the one or into your current practice as much possible, of course. And if you think that your practice is good enough, perhaps it's good input to us. You give us feedback, and perhaps in the future we can embed and we can improve this i-VIVA. Since i-VIVA is in our hand, we can improve the system from time to time without much problem. It's not a problem of cost and stuff, as long as we have the human resource expert to develop the system. All right, so I think we should proceed, inshallah. Maybe if you have more questions, you can ask later. Okay, now we are moving to agenda number 3, that is introducing to the system, introduction to the system. Okay, i-VIVA system actually can be accessed from that URL, iviva.iium.edu.my. It's accessible from outside campus, from anywhere actually. And this is the landing page. You have 3 options to log in based on your role as a student, as the academic staff or administrative staff, and lastly as external examiner. I just want to show you at least just to motivate you, especially my dear colleague at the Kuliah of Language and Management. The system actually has been used quite actively by other kuliah. So this is one of the modules in the system. I just want to share. The name of module is Thesis on Track. So basically, this module is to record the number of the submission of thesis by the student, and also to record once the thesis has gone out to the examiner, to record how many days for the examiner to return back the thesis. It's all recorded here. So if you see now, at least at this present time, the kuliah that has adopted the system in this case, like InHeart, KICT, and you have ICT, you have engineering, we have education, also we have nursing, and we have Kuliah of Architecture, so quite a number of kuliah has decided to adopt the system fully. So I think it's high time for me to encourage Kuliah of Language Management, the top management of the Centre of Study to decide on the adoption of the system. So from here, at least we can see even, the status of the submission, if the examiner has submitted or not, if he has submitted, if he has not submitted, how many days that he has, how many days late, and so on. So it's all recorded here. And this feature is actually very helpful, especially for the administrator. From my view just now, I'm showing the record for whole kuliah, Centre of Studies, but for the respective users at the specific kuliah, you can view only your students. So your view basically is less mass than mine. It's just for the student of your kuliah or for your Centre of Studies only. Okay, let's continue. So this is the landing page, and you click on the login button, and you should basically able to access the system. All right, this is the first page that you will see when you log in into the system. And if you are familiar with iMonitor, the look and the feel is exactly the same, like iMonitor. And eventually you want to merge these two systems together. So we have one unified platform. So the view actually is divided into three sections, three parts. On the most left is the menu. The menu will denote your roles as the user of the system. At least for the supervisor, you as the supervisor will be given three types of role: as the supervisor, as the post-VIVA supervisor, and as examiner, internal examiner. So in my case, I have extra because I want to oversee the whole system. So at least from your side, you should see these three roles: the supervisor, if you're co-supervisor as well, the internal examiner, and post-VIVA supervisor. If you don't have these four roles, please go to your PG office and meet with the administrator to assign you with this role. If you don't have this role, then you cannot access the menu under the role, the function of the system. All right, that is the first part or first section from the front page of the i-VIVA system, the menu section. And the one in the middle is information board. So this board basically will report some statistics, some details, especially about your student. If you have a student where you are the supervisor, you can see on top of the page this button labeled as chairman, supervisory committee, supervisor, co-supervisor. This is your role in supervising the student. If you see the number is not tally with whatever record that you have, again, you have to communicate with the PG office administrator to get it aligned, to get it fixed. All right. And the last section, the most at the most right, is the notification counter. Actually, this counter will toggle or reflect the number of requests initiated in the system, especially if you are the supervisor, the request from your student. If he has submitted the intent form, for example, on top of you will receive an email. If he has access the system, you'll see the number of requests. You can just click on the number to get access to the module. So this is the first page. Is quite user friendly to me, at least, and you can access actually more information from this page as well, where perhaps I don't have the information now. That's fine. All right. As a supervisor, you see now as a supervisor, as when you are as the supervisor, you have access to 9 modules, starting from the intention to submit research work down to copyright declaration. 9 modules together. So these are the modules that you have to at least aware of and knows their features. All right, the first module is intent submission. So you can activate this module by clicking on the menu down on the, not down, on the left side of the page, intention to submit research work. And if you click this menu, intention to submit, basically it will bring you to this page. Okay, this is the page where it will list down the number of students that submitted. In this case, I have one student that submitted the intent form. And I just need to click on the agree and disagree button to accept the notification, to accept the intent. So when I click on that button, so I'll be brought up to this page, intention to submit research work, where in this page, it has several features. First of all, this page allows the supervisor to decide whether he agree with the intent or not agree. And if he agree, he can select the recipient of the notification. In this case, the DDPG, the HOD, and the Kuliah Administrator. All right. And what is next? From this page as well, at the bottom side of the page, basically you have these extra features. Number 3, log to keep track of activities. So this is very useful. For example, now the notification is associated by the student, right? And then the supervisor has to agree with this notification. So it's recorded here. Supervisor has agreed. Supervisor has agreed. Co-supervisor has agreed. No, the notification will be sent to co-supervisor, to the HOD, to the Kuliah DDPG, to Kuliah Administrator, and we can keep track of those recipients. The name are all here. So what happens if you accidentally select and send the notification to the wrong person? So that is always happen. So that is an accident that's always happened. So what we have actually from this log, actually you have that extra button. It is not recorded here, but you can use that button basically to send a notification to the new person. And to the old recipient, basically an email will be sent to them saying that the email is wrongly sent or something like that. So we have that features in the system. If you have any features that you think you need to add into the module, you just let us know. So if you think it is worth to add, we can just add. All right, that is the first module, the first out from the 9 module. The next module is abstract submission. So it's the same thing. To access the module, there are 2 ways. First is from the menu. The second is from the notification board. In this case, I have one abstract submission to be addressed, to be responded. So I click on the number and basically brought me to, it will bring me to this page where the page lists down the student that has submitted the abstract. So what I have to do is I again click the view abstract and then download the abstract, read the abstract. If I agree, then I just click agree. If not, then the student has to fix the abstract with the comment by the supervisor. So basically, there's a button to accept and reject the submission. And for whatever action that you have taken as a supervisor, to accept or to reject will be recorded. In this case, for example, history of abstract submission, the student has submitted. Muhammad Arif has submitted, state is submitted, and so on. And this actually, I have answered to Dr. Nurhuda's question just now. The process can happen in the infinite loop. The student can keep update or send the abstract for approval if he has any addendum or new thing added to the abstract. Okay. The next module is the examiner nomination module. This is a very interesting module because of the interactive nature from the module. So to access this module, to nominate the examiner, again you can click on the menu and select examiner nomination, and it will bring you to this page that lists down the student who has actually submitted the abstract. Okay, and when you click the examiner nomination, it will bring you to this page where you can start nominate the examiner from the internal side. I mean, among our colleagues from IIUM, and also from the external. In this case, we provide 7 fields for you to nominate the examiner. And this again depend on the policy of the Centre of Study. And some Centre of Study ask the supervisor to nominate more than what is required, extra 1 person or extra 2 person. It depends. So Centre of Study must be very clear, and they must give a clear instruction to the staff member on this issue, on this matter, so that it will be easier for the KPGC meeting eventually to decide who to be selected, who to be selected among the nominated names. And the process is quite fluid as well. And the examiner, if it is internal, it will search among our colleagues, database stored at examiner database. So the searching process will search from that database. All right. And on top of the whole list of the staff members, you will have this additional 2 column. If you see current status of nominated examiner, number of nomination, number of active nomination, number of active appointment. What is the difference between the 2 columns? Number of active nomination is the number of nomination that the examiner has received. He has not been appointed yet, but he has received. And number of active appointment mean that he has been appointed, and on top of his table now has a stack of theses. So if you see a big number of appointment, for example, what should you do? Intuitively, as a supervisor, you might want to send to this person, because obviously it'll take a lot of time to assess or to evaluate your student thesis, right? So this information to us is very important for the supervisor to select the right examiner. Please do not select the examiner with a heavy load, with the number, with the thesis on his table to read, to evaluate. And he can eventually select that person of his liking. All right. So if he has finalized the name, then what happens is he can invite the person, send email to person by clicking the nomination button. And once he click that button, we will pop up windows again to make sure that you are sure that you want to nominate this person. So if you click this button, then there is no turning back. There is no turn back. So you have to accept whomever you nominate. Is it a good features? Well, let's see. All right. So actually that is not really good, because still accident happen. You can accidentally click the OK button in the pop-up windows. So to address that problem, we have actually a button called cancel selection. Okay, it's okay. Let us continue. All right. So let us focus on this person, Nick Ahmad Hisham. So he has yet to be nominated because his name is just being searched. And basically, we have this green button to preview the email that we are going to send out to him. So if you click the preview button, basically we can view the email and make sure the content is correct. Of course, the content is standard, but what is changed here is the detail of your student, the abstract, as well as you yourself as a supervisor. Okay, and then this email will be sent. This is the version of email that will be sent out to the nominated examiner. And you invite, then the examiner will receive the email. And I would again want you to ensure that the email is received by the examiner, especially the ex-examiner. Because in some cases, we have this case where we send out the nomination letter, nomination email, but somehow the email does not reach the recipient. Perhaps perhaps on their side, the IT side, on their side, they have set a certain policy on the email that the university received. So certain email, perhaps if they thought it's a threat, then they will quarantine that email. So if our email fall under that category, then it will be placed into this folder, and then the recipient is not receiving the email. So please, from time to time, if you feel your nominated examiner is not responding within time, the rational number of days, perhaps after 5 days, there's no response, maybe you want to contact him directly, okay, to make sure that he has received and read the email and respond to the email as well. All right, so so as I told you earlier, if you have wrongly nominated a person, you can cancel the nomination and you can invite again. In the case if the nomination or the email is not responded in 5 days, so we have these features. So under the action button, we have cancel nomination button. So if you feel that maybe the examiner is not interested in nomination, so you can just cancel the nomination and nominate a new person. But you can still wait. Maybe as I told you earlier, if you might think that he is not yet opening your email, or maybe the email is not received by him, you can call him and say whether you have received. If not, maybe you can ask him to respond. That can, so you don't necessarily need to cancel nomination. It's up to the supervisor, because we understand 5 days might be too short. Maybe the examiner is in conference, that takes more than 5 days. But we have these features to help you to navigate the process more efficiently. And under this view as well, the status of acceptance on the nomination is kept track by the PG office, because they need to make sure that all nomination has been responded. And once all the examiner has responded, those names will be brought to the KPGC meeting for the final selection. So this is monitored by the administrator. All right. So in the case for external examiner, let's say the name is not stored in our database. So you can use this module, external examiner registration, to register new examiner. So you can use this module not necessarily when you have the student to be evaluated. You can use this module at any time. If you have your friends, for example, that has potential to be our external examiner, you can just register him, and his name will be brought to KPGC to get endorsement. And from that on, his name is there, and not only you can nominate him, other user can also nominate him. All right. So this is done under external examiner registration. So before we use the module, of course, we want to check first whether the person is already in our database. You can search by not really staff ID, by name, perhaps by email, or perhaps by expertise. You can just key in or type in the keywords, and then those name or those examiner with the expertise basically will appear. In this case, there are quite a number of examiner without expertise being defined. So this actually is a legacy. It's a problem that we inherit from the previous system. Last time, we don't have a proper external examiner database that store this data. So that's why you see some of the examiner without the information. So what can you do is you can add this information. It's not only you, the Kuliah admin can also add information. The person himself, if you ask him to add, then they can also access the system and add this information. So three-prong or 3 ways to add the information into the registry of external examiner. All right. Okay. All right. And then you have to key in. So now we are putting the responsible to the supervisor to key in the information. Last time we understand some center of study put the responsibility to the administrator. So what happened is our dear brothers, lecturers just dump the CV to the administrator. Now, okay, you just fill in the information. And so we don't feel that is a good practice. The supervisor himself should be responsible who he want to nominate as his student examiner. So he need to key in all the information. It's not that complex. It follows the it follows the standard Senate approved CV, 5-page, like some of the detail and so on. And he also need to key in this information: his specialization, his academic qualification, working experience, publication, and or if he has any patents, perhaps he can record it here as well under innovation. All right. Okay, this is very, very important. And usually what happened during the postgraduate committee meeting at the Centre of Study, they will open this page and see whether the examiner has fulfilled the criteria. So all the detail has to be here for them to make the decision. Otherwise, perhaps the nomination will be rejected. All right. The next module, number 5, this module actually is the module to record the status of the nomination, whether it has been accepted or waiting for response from the examiner and so on. So in this case, if you click on the module, and then you can see the list of students who is to be evaluated, and the view button, click that view button, and you can see whether the examiner has responded to invitation or not. It's very simple module. And for the administrator in particular, what happened? I mean, this is good to share with you guys. When come times for the meeting, what happened is they will set the meeting with the reference number and so on, and they will look at the record, actually the record of examiner to be finalized. So in this case, for example, a list of examiner nominated waiting for approval by KPGC. We have 2 students, Abdul Qasim and also Farah Sakina. So the person will click on the button in front of the committee members, and the decision will be made right away on spot. So this is very, very efficient. So what happened this page, basically, if the examiner is external and if he's not yet approved, so the button, this green and red button actually appear under the column of a new external examiner. You just need to click either one button if approved. If you want to accept his registration, then click the green button. And once you click on the green button, basically this approved status is reflected. So actually all the person here has been approved. And then the next is to approve the nomination. So so this is where the finalization of the nominated examiner will be done. So if 2 examiners will be selected from the 4 nominated, then this is the place. All right. So once the examiner has been nominated, the nomination has been approved, the next features that the system give you actually is to reorder the examiner. So we know the examiner are composed of internal and external examiner, and for the respected examiner, you can assign him as the first examiner and the second examiner, depending on perhaps the expertise, the level of expertise, perhaps depend on the level of designation. So here, basically, the system allow the sequencing of the examiner. And for the examiner that has been rejected, the nominated examiner that has been rejected, then the KPGC can renominate, can nominate new names. So we also allow this to happen. All right. Let us move on. Maybe I can just skip this. That is menu of module for the administrator. Yes.
I have 2 questions. Number 1, because I'm looking at the filling in the details for the new nomination for the examiner. The thing is, there are quite a lot of things need to be sure it can be done, but I think that because most of university lecturers, you can get their CV straight away from the university website, right? I'm just wondering, would it be possible that the system actually consider to take information from the website or from the CV to be put in our system, like our system, because I think it will save a lot of time. Because like our CV, we can just simply click download and we get our CV right on the website.
Mm.
So other university, we can get the CV from the website. Would it possible that we sort of like have the system that we upload their CV, and then the system actually extract information from the CV? That's I just wonder, that's number one. And number two, we know that becoming examiner would actually give some points for us, Myra and whatnot, and whatnot. So question is, can I nominate myself to be put in the expert list so that maybe one day people just search or to see my name or can be the examiner? Is it possible to do that?
Yes. All right, let me respond to your first one. I mean, we have thought about allowing the supervisor to upload the CV of the examiners. Of course, the CV different variation. And of course, if you want to extract information from that CV, it might be very, very difficult. You need to have a high intelligent system to extract, to scan through the CV and identify which part report the record of supervision, which part records this obligation, and so on. So that might not be possible at this point, but to allow the submission of CV is okay. It's okay. Why we introduce the module is because for the previous practice, to nominate the examiner at the kuliah level, the supervisor need to fill in that standard CV, the 5-page standard CV. So perhaps because to ensure that there's a structure, a standard structure. As I told you, the CV sometimes of the examiner, sometimes is 100 pages. He record everything, FIP supervision also. So for all academic action, appointment he received, he just put the CV. So the CV is huge. So perhaps the spirit last time to introduce the simpler version of form to record the examiner CV is to respond to that variation of CV from the examiner. But we can include CV, no problem. That's not a problem. That is to answer your question, the need, why we need to fill in the information into that page. It's because that is what we have been practicing before. All right, and on the second issues, what is the question again, number second? Okay, all right. Actually, the question is very valid because one of the Centre of Study recently has been audited. And the auditor reported that we actually, from the system, do not report the examiner record on supervision. Because the 5-page CV last time do not ask that information. But in our PG policy, actually, to become an examiner, the examiner at least has to graduated student of that level. For example, if he is to evaluate master student thesis, he must have graduated master student, something like that. So we don't have that information for the time being. So what happened is for the external examiner, we will improve the system. But for the internal examiner, since we have the record, I have actually approached ITT to include that information in our staff directory. If you search your name, you can find your record, right? With the brief information on the number, on your publication, your grant, research grant, but we are lacking on the supervision record. So I have approached them, ITD, to include that information, and this information actually is accessible from the external. So those academic from other university who want to nominate you, for example, to search your name in the browser, and hopefully the browser will lead you to that page. You can see the page, your CV briefly from the brief CV that page. So that is to respond to your question. It's very valid, and I also want the COM requirement. Old policy don't have this requirement. We have added this requirement because M2A has asked us to do so. So other universities has the same requirement as well. where if they want to if they want to nominate examiner, the examiner has to have supervised the student into completion at the respective level. All right. Hope that answers your question. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there any question from online? No question. Thank you. Let us proceed. So the next module is the completion checklist. Is the completion checklist. All right. This completion checklist actually is meant for the student to submit the document. So it does not necessarily need to wait until the finalization of the examiner. It can run parallel because we want to save time. As I told you earlier, while the supervisor is busying himself with finalizing the examiner, the student can focus on the work and complete the report and submit the whole document into the system. So what he needs to do is he will, from the student side, they have their own module to submit the document. And once he submit, you will be notified as the supervisor and you have to check. All right, so you will be receiving an email as well. So you log into the system to respond, and you see in this case, under completion checklist module, I have a student who has submitted. All right, and then you'll see this page. First of all, this is the student status when submitting completion checklist. So this status is very important. Among the requirement for the student to graduate is he need to clear English. Student, he must register, meaning for that particular semester when he want to submit the thesis, his financial record must be cleared as well. But for the financial record, basically it's quite relaxed. If you find the financial record is red, you can still actually the administrator can still approve because we have another gateway actually to ensure that the student is paying fees. So because we don't want to delay the process of iVIVA, financial is not it's clear, and perhaps you can consider and approve the submission. But anyway, it's not the task of supervisor to do that. It is the task of administrator and also for the DPG. So for a supervisor, you don't have to worry about the status. What you have to worry is about the integrity of the document submitted by the student. Now you see, first of all, you see here updated thesis. The student has submitted thesis, and you've gone through the thesis. And if you accept, then it's fine. If you don't accept the submission, you can just fill in the report or the comments down here. You tick and then you put comments. This is on the thesis document itself. And then you also can comment on the turning in report. So some kuliah decided for the student to submit the whole report. If it is 10 pages report, which sometimes does not make sense. To us, the most important is the first page of the turning in report that show the percent similarity. And as our policy, the student has to attain less than 24% similarity for the thesis to be accepted. All right, and if all documents are okay, or of course, proof of publication as well. On the practice of publication, so it's also depend on the Centre of Studies. So some Centre of Studies, in order to expedite the process, they allow the student to submit the document without showing the proof of publication. It's okay, because proof of publication is graduation requirement, meaning that upon submission of final thesis, still the student can leverage on that timing as well to upload the document of publication. Because some students sometimes they are not ready with they just finished writing up the publication and has submitted, but there is no response yet from the journal editor and something like that. We don't want that to hinder students from sitting for the iVIVA as soon as possible. So please, for the Centre of Study, be wise. The ideal spirit here is to help students to graduate as soon for them to reach graduate on time. All right, this completion checklist, one is it is done. You can basically view the log. So in this case, you see here, number one, the student has submitted. And then number 2, supervisor has accepted. Number 3, kuliah administrator has verified. And lastly, number 4, the DPG has approved. So this process is all okay. You see here, there is no comment given by all the parties. This is a perfect submission. Otherwise, you'll see the ding dong. I mean, if it's not accepted, the thesis will be written back, and then the student has to submit. Sometimes it can happen more than 5 times, just because of not complying, it's not following the right format of writing reference, for example. So this is also very important. The CPS recently has introduced a new policy where the student don't have thesis anymore. This is to save costs, and also I mean from all the side, from the student side, even from the library side, because they don't have space. So when you product the thesis itself, sometimes difficult for you to check the format. So a small mistake in the soft copy is it's not aligned. So that's the reason why you will see many rejection at the administrator level upon submission of the thesis, and it's okay. The supervisor should not be freaked out, should not comment or go to the PG office and ask why the submission is not approved again and again. Just be cool and try to address the comment given by the administrator as cool possible. It's nothing to rush. Submission can be done, correction and submission can be done again on spot, click of the button. Okay, and once the DDPG has said okay, then the student status will turn to TE, where this is what the student actually dream of, because they don't have to pay the registration tuition fees anymore. It's a very important step. All right, so now go back to administrator. So once the thesis has been accepted by the PG office, name of examiner is finalized, then the administrator will do the rest of the work. They will generate appointment letter, they will wait for the examiner to accept the appointment, and once accepted, the clock start ticking, then they will make sure that the thesis will be written within due time. So these are all through using the system. So I don't want to dwell with this that much, but at least I want you to know what happened behind or beyond your action in the i-VIVA system. Generation of appointment letter, submission, sending notification to the examiner. But what is important for the supervisor is you want to know where the thesis is now, whether it is still stuck at the PG office, or if the thesis has been submitted, forwarded to the examiner is not yet written the thesis. Okay, all now are in the system. For example, now under the model thesis on track, module number 7, for the student array, you click the detail. So you will see, you and also the student likewise, you see this view. External 2. Of course, the name won't be revealed because this is confidential. But from the administrator, they can see the names, of course. So you can see the countdown, the number of days left for the examiner to examine. If he accident, please do not worry. I believe that administrator will have done their job or is doing their job to chase after the report. Okay. Okay, once the report, assuming all the report now is coming back, the task for the administrator now is to call for the VIVA. So everything can be set using i-VIVA system, from setting up the chairperson to the setting up the venue, or if in the case of online, they can also set up the link for the session. And once this is done, the system can generate an invitation letter to come for the session. So this, I mean, it will be done by the administrator. So you as a supervisor just need to sit down and watch the drum. All right. So after that, what happened after the session is done? Then times to fill in the decision from the VIVA session. That is If there is a new title in English, in Arabic, need to be updated, and we can address it using the system. The assignment of post-VIVA supervisor and the duration of correction, the deadline of correction, the VIVA result, and for master thesis, the grade will be reported as well. PhD don't have to, and a potential best student award if you think necessary, worth to give to the student. And then, and as I told to our audience just now, once finalized, the result has been endorsed by the chairman. Of course, the one who do the clicking, the administrator, on behalf of the chairman. But the decision actually is done by the chairman. And this result will be sent to the respective party, post together with the appointment letter to the post-VIVA supervisor. All right. The second last module for the supervisor is extension of correction. So what happened if is for the result of the VIVA, there are category of a correction that is minor or not, no correction at all, minor, major, resubmission. And different level of result actually tied to the a certain period of time given for the student to submit back the report. Of course, the more serious the flaw of the thesis has been found by the examiner, the longer time is given for the student to respond. So in the case where the student cannot complete the report within time, then he can ask for additional time. Maximum we give 2 months. The student will use the system to ask the extension, and the supervisor will, the post-VIVA supervisor will give the approval. Okay, and basically this is the view of the teachers. All right. Okay, now as the rule of supervisor is concerned, they are all done. They are all done, except one more. Sorry, to certify the submission. But the one that on the slide now is for the post-VIVA, is the role for the post-VIVA supervisor, who can be the supervisor again. So the role of post-VIVA supervisor is to finalize the final submission of the thesis. The student has submitted the thesis, all document. Okay, now the post-VIVA supervisor approves. Okay, this is the document that the student has to submit, and the supervisor has to basically go through, browse through the final thesis, the list of correction, comments given by the examiner, and the response by the student, review form for the thesis binding, turn in report, Arabic and English abstract, and then the last button is the finalist checking. So when all the forms are, or document got tick, the green tick, endorsed, meaning by the post-VIVA supervisor, the next party or the next officer will check the submission is the administrator at the Centre of Studies PG office, and then go to DPG, and the Dean of the Centre of Study will have the final say to endorse. When he say endorse, then an email will be sent to the office of CPS to change the status to GR. All right. So you see here, I just want to just highlight the history of submission of final thesis. It start from the bottom, number 5, student submitted. Sakinah submitted. Min post-VIVA supervisor recommended. But in this case, Centre of Study Administrator number 3, the status is not verified submission. And then the document we send back to the student. And you see number 2, the student has resubmit. And then now it has been approved by the post-VIVA supervisor, and it is under the evaluation of administrator. So this is where I said the supervisor should not be met to the administrator if the document got rejected. Yeah. So I have seen some cases, especially at my some cases at the kuliah where this happened, and but we have to deal. We have to adapt. This is a system, new system that where we have to adapt the practice like that. So okay, the previous one is submission of an. Okay, the last one, if the dean has endorsed the submission, now the student will file a copyright declaration form. And then the task of the supervisor is to certify whether the student has rightly select the class of copyright, either owned by IIUM, owned by the student, owned by the fund provider or sponsor, or jointly owned with the third party. And also the second thing that the student will select is the type of access: confidential, restricted, embargo, and open access. All right. And when the supervisor certify, so the document, okay, this is the certify button. So an email will be sent to library, and the library will, see what type of declaration that the student has made. For example, in this case, if you see this page, type of copyright ownership, the student declare as it's owned by the fund provider or sponsor. As for that, perhaps the funder asks, or the funder do not allow the thesis to be openly accessed. And should be set by embargo. In this case, this thesis is subjected to an embargo period of 1 year due to the following reason: personal matters. So usually maximum times for embargo is 3 years. That is normal. Because to give time, for example, to give time for the student or supervisor to file for patent. A patent will take time. It's usually more than 1 year. So please choose this wisely so that you have time to do whatever you need to do. Otherwise, once the document has been made public, again, there is no return back. All right, so the library will download, and that's it. All right, done. The last one, before we end, actually, I just want to share you the role as internal examiner, where you might be the internal examiner yourself. So for that, under internal examiner profile role, you have 3 functions: nomination, acceptance. This is to keep the record of your decision, whether you have accepted the nomination or not. This is you as an internal examiner. Appointment letter, you can download the appointment letter later on if you want to use it for promotion purpose, for example. It is in the system. And also thesis examiner mode, where this is where you can upload back, or you can download the thesis, and then you can upload back the evaluation report. So as an examiner, for example, you log into the system, you click on the menu, and you see this page. You click on the yellow box, nomination acceptance. This is actually the record of your acceptance. This is the nomination acceptance. You have the declaration of conflict of interest as well. Please read carefully and then before you accept. And this actually is coming together with your at 2 points. The first time when you accept the nomination, second time is when you accept the appointment to be examined. All right. This is just for the record. To load the document, upload the evaluation form, you have this page. That module actually is for you to access and to upload the document, the thesis report form. This is compulsory. And also the thesis file comments. The examiner put the comments in the thesis itself. Now with the advance of Adobe software, the PDF reader, the PDF files software, you can even write comments on the file in a more structured form. So many examiners opt for this option. The comments are written in the thesis itself, and they want to upload the thesis. And they can upload this thesis on top of thesis report form, of course. And for the internal examiner, we will ask them to upload the passport for the purpose of paying their honorarium, and also if there is any additional report, any loose paper report out from the thesis report form, he can also upload it here. So these are the 4 documents that we ask from the examiner to upload, and 3 for the internal examiner, of course. Passport is not necessary. All right, and that basically wrap up this session. And if you have any question, please do so. We have until 4:30 to comments or to give response to your question. I mean, my colleague here, you have any question? How about from the online session, from online participant? Let me see if there is any question. You can ask question in the chat box. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nur Al-Huda again. Of course, the PG coordinator is not in the loop to approve, to do the approving process. PG coordinator is a role introduced in the kuliah to help the HOD manage postgraduate student. In some kuliah, what happened is the role of HOD in the i-VIVA system is assigned to PG coordinator. So in that sense, in that case, the HOD has delegated his power to approve some of the process to the PG office. So if that is so, then the PG coordinator can access the system as the head of department. And then to assign that role as HOD actually can be done at the PG office of the respective Centre of Studies. So it's all depend on the structure at the Centre of Studies who delegate the power to who. So for PG coordinator itself, the rule is not there, but we have HOD, and that might be empowered the role of HOD to get. It's happened at some kuliah, I know. To respond to the any question? Any other question? From CPS? From technical ITD? By the way, we just increased the size of file to be submitted. Last time we set it to 20 meg. We thought 20 meg is big. It's very big for a thesis. For a thesis stored as a PDF file. But it happened in the last few days. There are student thesis that is more than 20 meg. So we have increased. Thank you to ITD again, because to get a space for for this purpose is not cheap. It's not cheap. So but they have actually upgrade the maximum size of 20 meg to 50 meg. So thank you to the ITD for giving the student extra space to submit the thesis up to 50 meg, which I think is a rarity for the student to reach to 50 meg. Is too much, unless if the student use a big size of image or any file embedded into the thesis itself, high resolution image, for example, that can make the size of file explode to full of megabyte. So that can happen, but we can always advise the student that's not necessary. So that the size of file is not, when the file is too big as well, that might cause problem when the student want to upload and for the examiner to download. So this has to be conveyed to our student as well from time to time. Inshallah. Any question? All right, if there is no question, I think that's a wrap up from my side. Thank you very much to all the attendants. I really appreciate your attendance. Hopefully, please log in. Please record your attendance, especially for the junior staff, for the fresh for junior staff for junior staff, because now it's become a mandatory set by the MQA for all the new staff, especially those who has not even supervised any student, to go through what we call a supervision module workshop. There are 5 modules altogether, and i-VIVA is one of the modules. You have to fulfill all 5 in order for you to start supervising. So those who fall under that category, please be vigilant. Of course, here you have to record attendance, and if there is any opening or any advert on the new workshop under this module 5 altogether again, please join, so that you can complete the requirement and start doing this supervision in a much, well-structured professional, inshallah. So thank you very much to all.
Dr. Naim.
Yes.
Dr. Naim. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry because maybe I have one question because currently I'm hands-on on the i-VIVA. Is it okay, Doctor? Okay. So
Okay, sure.
now I fill up the registration for the external examiner. Then after I fill up all the data, okay, so then the i-VIVA pop up. By submitting this form, I confirm that the information provided is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. I click OK. Then if after I click OK, then I can, how can I know whether they have saved or not?
Oh. Okay. Yes. I'm not pretty sure if it is not endorsed yet. Is it stored in the database? Okay. All right. So from our technical side, she confirmed that you can search in the external database registry. Maybe you can search by name and see whether the record is there. Can you try now?
Okay. Yes. Hold on. Yeah. External examiner nomination, right?
Mm-hmm.
Examiner
And then go
nomination.
to the external. You click
External
on
one.
the.
Prof, sorry.
Yeah.
Prof, saya Zulaika. Bukan tu macam tu doktor, tekan dekat external examiner registration. Okay, dekat situ ada nama kan, bawah button register tu ada nama. Lepas tu ada kotak box name, dekat name tu search nama yang dah di-savekan tu.
Okay, saya pergi dekat examiner nomination module kan?
Bukan, external examiner registration.
Okay, lepas tu?
Lepas tu nampak external examiners kan?
Okay.
Lepas
List
tu
of registered examiner tu?
okay. Tulis nama yang kita dah simpan tadi.
Okay, kejap Rekaya.
Search dekat name.
No result found.
Buat tu doktor save tu dia keluar apa?
Save tu dia keluar balik detail yang saya perlu masuk tu.
Dia ada merah tak kat atas tu? Biasanya kalau ada problem ke apa, dia ada tulis merah kat atas tu. Macam email tu tak okey ke?
Okay, saya dah buat banyak kali sebenarnya. Dia memang akan keluar merah tapi dia hanya dia akan kosong pada bahagian select only one and enter the name in full, no abbreviation.
Macam mana? Nanti doktor pesan dengan saya boleh? Saya Zulaika daripada ITD.
Oh, Zulaika?
Daripada ITD. Doktor pesan
Boleh bagi extension number?
Apa? 2521.
2521 gombak
Betul.
Okay. Alright, thank you very much. Sorry, Prof. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much, Tita Zulaika.
Okay.
So thank you very much. I think to the doctor who asked the question and also to Sister Zulaika who responded. Zulaika is the main programmer of the system and she knows the in and out of the system. So basically what she meant is if everything is clear, if there is no error, like when you fill up the information, there is field that it's written compulsory with a star, and you have to fill that field. You must fill that field. But for others, it's optional. And if there is no problem, no problem, you can check whether the data is stored by going to this page, module number 4, and then just type in the name or type in the expertise perhaps that you have key in, see whether the record is there. Otherwise, as what the programmer has just said, if any problem, get back to her so that she can solve the problem immediately. But I think the best way, rather than everybody is texting her, the best way is to report the problem to your PG office, and the PG office can direct to us. I think it's more structured that way, because programmer might change. If Sister Ika, if I don't know, I mean, better you give to us, and then we forward to the person in charge to address it. And we can assure you that IT is very committed into the system, and you can receive the command, if not the next day, the same day, in the same day. That's how I want to stress the level of commitment given by ITD under Prof. Norbin. Inshallah. All right, thank you. Any?
Tadi Prof cakapkan supaya lecturer boleh supervise, kita masuk kan? Kompas kita. Tak boleh supervise kalau tak masuk.
Maybe this is out of record. This is out of record. Basically, the instruction is given by MQA, but they don't ask us to enforce the policy right away, because of course we need to prepare the module. The last meeting with them, they give us 2 years grace period before we enforce. So you guys are still, I mean, safe to supervise before the actual implementation, but try as much possible to join the workshop, because the idea is noble as well, to ensure that the supervisor know how to supervise correctly.
So this workshop organized by CPS.
By CPS. CPS.
So
Actually, we
announcement to all lecturers.
Yes, usually we will send appointment to the mess. I am mailing this. We also approach PG office. Actually, we have only conducted two sessions. We just started. You might have missed it, but you don't have to worry. I think we'll ensure, madam, for the PG office to get this information and disseminate to the staff member and make sure everybody receives the information.
Is there any plan, I mean, at least this year or maybe next year, to have all the workshops in line? Because what like you say is quite worrisome, because I have 2 PhD students, and I haven't. This is actually the first workshop on the 5 modules you mentioned. I've never heard about the iVIVA.
Okay. All right.
So I do not know what's coming out.
Okay.
So I think if we can, if you have this, if you have set the dates for the other workshops, we can actually pick time for that.
Yeah.
Put in our calendar.
Yes. Sure.
And it would be great that you can come back, KLM. You can come back to KLM, why not?
I think this 5 workshop is new, Prof.
It's very new, but except i-VIVA, as far as my knowledge is, we have prepared, actually approved 2 out from the 4. 2 has been endorsed as MC, right? The other 2 is still has not been offered. So you don't have to worry, it's still preliminary. As you, especially my dear doctor, still have 2 exams. So if you are within this time, you should be safe. You should be safe.
Because we have new staff in our department and we give them already supervision.
Yeah. I mean, in some cases, of course, in some cases, of course, if you have justification, perhaps the kuliah don't have enough supervisors. I mean, this policy can be, to me.
But sure, inshallah, if there is an announcement from CPS,
Yes.
workshop, we will get them.
Yes, for the, I mean, so that we can plan. It's the same as TIDE program for the new staff. TIDE program is for them to prepare for teaching. This workshop is to prepare them to be a supervisor.
Would there be a problem if my student graduate before the end of the 2 years period?
I think it should be. Inshallah, I think
it's approaching very fast now, so I think she may be able to finish this year.
Yeah.
Next year.
I think you don't have to worry until we at CPS level have sort out the workshop properly ourselves, even not that ready. So you don't have to worry. And from the word of the MQA deputy director, he said university are given 2 years grace period. So even if it's 3 years, it really depends. This thing is very, I think it's not like hard and fast rule. If we have justification, we can always, as KLM, we know that number of staff is not that many, program is new, then I think that's a strong justification for you to be assigned as a role of supervisor. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Maybe I can pass back the session to our MC, Sister Damia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, thank you, Prof. Naim, for the very fruitful session. So, inshallah, without further delay, I think I would like to end our session today. Thank you for those who joined in the online virtually. Thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting CPS, and thank you for those who are in physical here today. So, inshallah, I would like to close our session with recitations from us and tasbih. Thank you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you.
Okay, before we leave, I would like to take photos. Group photos for those who are still here. If you could open your camera, it will be much more nicer. So my team, if you are around, please do take photos on behalf of me. So hold on, yeah. Okay. So if you could open your camera, it will be much more nicer. So we can have very nice online photos. Okay. All right. With the count 1, 2, 3. Everybody ready? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay. Another one. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think done. Assalamualaikum.
Dah sempat so.
What do you
Oh, itu.